All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Mariposa Young. I am a psychic medium and I have been doing it for a very long time. This year, I'm going to turn 50 and I've had quite an adventure in this life of being a reader of palms and astrology and cards and also being a medium. I really don't think there's one best way to become a medium. I really don't think that's how it works. I think that each of us have to come to that skill in our own way. But I think it might be encouraging to tell my journey, my personal journey in becoming a medium and see if that helps others on their journey. Uh-oh. I hope you can hear me now. Help others on their journey to possibly being a medium. If you really don't care to be a medium, and why would you? And that's fine. This personal storytelling gives you insight into my journey, and you can know in particular how I work with mediumship if you are curious and maybe want to book a mediumship reading with me someday. So I came from a magical family. I was taught palm reading and astrology and card reading in childhood. There were many professional readers in my family, but of course, the most impactful ones were my grandmother and my mother. And my grandmother, in addition to being a professional reader, was also a witch for hire and would do spells for people and such. Yeah, so that's my background. So I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. Now, neither my mother nor my grandmother really delved into mediumship. Although I would argue that they used those skills in their practice, but they weren't specifically selling that kind of reading. And it was really my great grandmother who was the last greatest medium in our family, because she was a spiritualist and did seances in the parlor of the brothel she ran. That's right, folks. I come from very colorful folks. Okay. So, anyway, when I was in my 20s, I was in a Wiccan coven and learned a lot more about Wicca style witchcraft. And the high priestess of that coven would channel a very, very old ancestor of hers from pre-Christian, I think Wales might be. Anyway, it was Celtic. It was a Celtic ancestor of hers, and she would channel. So channeling is very different than mediumship. So when you channel, you're allowing a spiritual entity to possess you. And when they possess you, you are speaking they're using you to speak. You're speaking their words, you are seeing with their eyes, you are everything. So it can be really an out of body experience for the channeler because for a brief time you're not in control of your body. So our high priestess often channeled an ancestor to give our coven readings, and she was trying to train us to do the same. Now, I'm way too much of a control freak and really cannot channel. Actually, it would be better to say that I don't want to channel. That's not what I want to do. So, mediumship would be different than channeling in that you stay yourself, you maintain your ego, you maintain your point of view, and you encounter spiritual entities and get messages from them. And then, of course, that runs through your own filter of experience and language. And then you pass that along to other people or just for yourself. So that is mediumship, and that's how it works. So kind of some pre-training though, because those channeling and mediumship are similar, even though they are different. Kind of some pre-training was to get to know my ancestors. The high priestess of our coven was really focused primarily on ancestors and connecting with ancestors, and many indigenous traditions of spirituality have ancestral worship, ancestral contact. Ancestors are really important. So that entailed a lot of meditation, that entailed a lot of astral projection, that entailed a lot of being able to conceive of the spiritual plane and get myself there spiritually or close so that they could meet me from the spiritual plane easier, right? And that was going really well. Unfortunately, my coven's focus was not on spiritual protection. And so I have some ancestors that are kind of rough. I have, murder, death killers in my ancestry. I have people while in life that went through horrendous things, and even in the spiritual plane have not processed that and are not kind. So unfortunately there wasn't protection, and so some of the encounters I was having were scary to me, were upsetting to me, made me angry, and made me ultimately kind of shut down that practice and that exploration for a number of years after that. Now, I'm going to go backwards and talk about my childhood. So, while my childhood was magical, in that magical things, divination especially, was available to me to explore. I was an extremely imaginative child. And so I had imaginary friends when I was very little, like 4 and 5 years old. And I've come to understand that imaginary friends is probably, for all children, me included, probably entities from one spiritual team engaging with you directly. So those entities are still on my spiritual team and are spirit guides of me. They're not ancestors, they're spirit guides. Um, and I bring that up because I think that children do not have societal's filter of, like, what's acceptable, what's okay to experience, especially in a spiritual sense. And so they are really open. And they are also very protected also by their spiritual team, because they're so young. So uh, if you have children that are really young and they're talking about imaginary friends and everything, I don't really think there's a need to label that or explain that or whatever, but it is important to accept that, um, maybe even encourage that, and encourage that connection and that exploration, and validate it and be like, that is valuable for you to experience. And I did too when I was little, or I know of people who did, or however you want to frame that. It allows for confidence in adulthood, framing it that way, and I think my family framed it that way. That they were very accepting of that situation, and they just assumed it was my spiritual team contacting me. I think that acceptance I carried through into adulthood, and it made me a little more adventurous and accepting of what's going on, than the average bear. In addition, I have always loved science. I am very respectful of science and psychology and everything. Once upon a time, psychology was my major. And there's been quite a bit of more recent studies comparing mediumship experiences and like psychosis or delusion or things like that. And the main difference is that there is a measure of control. So for mediumship, you should be able to protect yourself. You should be able to turn it on and off at your pleasure and at your designs, right? Like, I only turn on that experience for when I am doing readings, mediumship readings, or doing ceremony for my own spiritual practice. And then the rest of the time, I turn it off. Why? Because it's really hard to manage a human life, a human adult life, and being in perpetual contact with the spiritual world. And I have to get things done. And I live here on the earthly plane. So, and that's okay with me. So, when it is like a problem, maybe psychologically, and difficult for you, is when you don't have control over it, and what you are seeing and hearing and feeling is causing you anxiety and fear, and all kinds of things are going on for you as a result of not being able to control that experience, or even maybe totally understand what's happening. And then it can feel like you are losing your mind. So when I took baby steps into mediumship as a young adult, I was like, I don't want to do this if it's, if I'm only encountering um entities that are negative or that I have negative feelings about. Um, I think in one case in particular, they were coming to apologize, but I was like not ready, right? So anyway, uh the whole thing was like, this is not like I don't have the ability right now to like push those entities to the side and call in more positive, nurturing entities. And again, I was only focused on ancestors and not my whole spiritual team when I was in young adulthood. And so your ancestors, honestly, they're not all great, right? You got bad people in your family and good people in your family, everything in between. And that's true for all of us. And it might be a little skewed in my case. But anyway, um, so whereas I think all of our spirit guides and our guardian angels are wholly positive. Um, their purpose is wholly positive and their energy is wholly positive in our lives. Um, whether we know of them or not, ancestors is a mixed bag, right? And I just lack the ability to kind of filter that out and discern and self protect myself spiritually. So I just kind of shut it all down. You know what I mean? Like I would still go to my high priestess for readings from her channeling, and I would still go to other mediums and get readings, but I wasn't delving into that myself personally. And I just assumed that my spiritual team was helping me in my divination. And that's true. And I think that's true, whether you dive into mediumship or not. Um, everyone has a spiritual team, whether you know them or not. Everyone has ancestors, whether you like them or not, hanging around you. And each entity has a different purpose of being hanging out with you. Um, and that team can evolve and change over time as well. Um, so I like shut it down, right? And just was doing divination until my whoosh, a long time really. So until I was in my early to mid 40s, right? And I was like, I really think I'm ready to kind of level up here in this area of mediumship. Um, in particular, I had a rift with my mother, and still my mother doesn't talk to me. Um, it's almost a decade now that she hasn't talked to me, and so I'm the kind of person that really loves connection and family connection. And so I was like, well, I think it's time to get more in contact of my ancestors that are positive and more direct contact, direct conversation with my spiritual team. And so I was unsure how to go about that. So I got a few books and they were helpful. I have to say that working with a couple different mentors was really the key for me. And in working in those mentors, there was also group practice. And so it wasn't just me learning, and it was really learning as a group and practicing with each other these mediumship skills. So the foundation of mediumship skills are developing the clairs. So there's clairvoyance, where you see things, you're shown things, maybe the face of that spiritual entity or scenes from their life, or they are showing you important things that are like a place or a thing, those kind of things. That's clairvoyance. And then there's clairaudience, where you hear their voice talking to you. And there is gustance, where you can get a smell or taste in your mouth of like their favorite food, or if they were a smoker, you'll smell that, things like that. And there's clair empathy, where you feel their feelings. So if they come to you and they are very sad, you just uncontrollably might cry or feel sad, or they come to you and they're very happy, you feel very happy, and it doesn't really match up with what's going on in your life, but it is from that spiritual entity. There's probably a few. Oh, clairsentience, clair feeling. You might have a sensation in your body that is giving you information. This happens to me mostly when I ask entities how they pass, and then maybe I have a pain in my throat, and so they might have choked, and that's how they passed, or I have a pain in my chest, or I have body pains if they were in an accident, things like that. These are transient and brief pains. They don't overly bother me. They just give me information, but that's a clair. So clairs are getting information from your senses, but from the spiritual plane, from spiritual entities communicating with you. And I think we're all capable of all the clairs. I do think most mediums settle on one or two that are their strongest clairs. And for me, that's clairvoyance and clairaudience. But every medium is different, and it really goes with their own personal proclivities and talents. Like, not thinking about spirituality, I'm a very visual learner, so that makes sense that I am clairvoyant. So anyway, we were doing some exercises to develop those individual skills, like the clairs and everything, but there was a huge foundation in protection, first and foremost, and control, being able to both open our spiritual senses and also close them down, and with a lot of intention and control. Also being able to call to us specific spiritual entities. Like if I'm doing a reading for someone else, there's my cat. If I'm doing a reading for someone else, I'm specifically calling their past loved ones in. And then if I am, or there's spirit guides that have a really important message for them. And if I am doing my own practice, it might be like, I really need the spiritual entity that is helping me with my physical health, or I need the one that is really helping me with my career, or, whatever it might be, right? Very specific um, energies calling in, and you have spirit guides or a guide that is their whole job is for protection. So calling them in first and letting them be the bouncer of your energy, not just in readings, but in all times, um, so that you have control and you're not kind of getting overwhelmed or bombarded with what might be negative or scary encounters. Um, Not to say there's not a place or a time for those kind of things, but um, it should be under your control, no matter what purpose you're doing it for. Um, and you have to be really clear about if you want to take it a step further and get into channeling, or if you're okay with just the mediumship experience, those kind of things. And then, as a group, we just practiced a lot and really talked about how to spiritually frame this. Like, what's going on? What happens after someone dies? Um, and I've come to some conclusions, and I like, what should I share? Because I think everyone should come to their own conclusions. I think agency and knowing your own mind is like paramount. Uh yeah, especially as I get older, I'm kind of alarmed at younger people just parrot as in the bird, parroting other people. And I'm not sure that is really good for you as an individual. I'm not sure it helps your spiritual growth either. So you really have to feel into things. And, if it's going well and if it feels good, continue and broaden it and expand it. And if it doesn't resonate with you and it doesn't feel good or productive, or you're having a negative experience, you need to stop doing that thing and try something else. Okay. Uh, so there's many kind of exercises that you can do. There's kind of like group exchanges that you can participate in. But it's good to find a group that is like-minded spiritually and otherwise. That is so important. Um, and so I've come to understand that here on the earthly plane is a school, and it's a spiritual school. And we come here to learn spiritual lessons. And it's so important that we learn these lessons on the earthly plane, that we each have a team to help us with that. And our ancestors also had their own lessons they had to learn. And you may or may not learn all your lessons in one lifetime. And our ancestors may or may not be spiritual giants. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think respect is due ancestors just because their lives made your life possible. I mean, think about that. But it doesn't mean that they were perfect or even more spiritually advanced than you. They might be, but they may not be, so we shouldn't make that assumption. We should get to know our ancestors one on one at a time, and really fold them in to our spiritual team very consciously for very specific reasons. And we should approach our ancestors with a lot of respect and gratitude. But it's another matter if they're going to further your own spiritual development or not. That's another question that you have to explore. And then the spirit guides and guardian angels, that's way better deal to explore, lean in, get to know, because they already know the game plan for you spiritually and are assigned to you to help you learn those things. So working with them is a lot more productive. It is a lot more ease. It has more ease to it, I would say. And they can help you with all kinds of things, mundane things, everyday life things. My team helps a lot with divination. And so when they are helping with divination, they are in conference with that person's spiritual team and coming to a group decision on what to convey through me. I really think that's how it works for me. Again, though, you have to come to your own understanding. And I really think within and without spiritual traditions and religions, it's important to really know these things to be spiritually true for you through your experience and practice. So now I've been a medium for several years. I do mediumship readings, and I charge money. And then what I have found that what really helps my process, because I like to be an evidentiary medium for my clients. So that means that I really want to produce evidence that I really am in contact with your past loved one or your spirit team member. And that means that I try and draw what I'm seeing, because I'm mostly clairvoyant. Now, I'm not like, a super duper awesome artist. I do my best. I have taken some art classes, but I do my best. And I don't get hung up on that. But it really does help my process to, just see where the pencil takes me, what comes out. I often draw faces of the people that are coming before me, things like that. And then I share that with my client so that they can see what I saw, and maybe that offers evidence that that was a real encounter, because my clients can't get inside my head, right? They can't experience what I'm experiencing. So it's all boils down to how well I can share what I'm experiencing with my clients. So that's what I do that way. But it's a big part of my personal spiritual development and practice as well, is working with my spiritual team in total. And it's ever evolving. And it's very healing. I have a stronger, deeper sense of family, even though my earthly family, honestly, they suck rocks. They're awful. But who cares? Because I do have a very rich family life. It's just on the spiritual plane. So I hope my personal story was encouraging to you. If you feel so moved as to explore mediumship as a skill of your own, I also am a tutor for that and can help you get there. Um, and even if you don't feel like I'm a right fit for you, I do encourage you to find mentors and resources to help you with this skill. It's kind of an advanced skill, and it can you can get a handle on it better, I think, in community. And then even if that's just not your jam and you don't care about that, at least you got to know me better and learn about my story and my journey and how it worked for me. And maybe you'd like to try it out and get a reading. Uh, Either way, class or a reading, you can find both those and schedule both those on my website, which is really easy. It's just my name.com. So mariposayoung.com. So anyway, thank you for being with me today. And I hope you have a great, great day and week and year and month, all the things. All right. Thank you for joining me. Bye.